We thank you for joining us today. We are here to talk about CreARTE, the new grant program from the Jorge M. Perez Family Foundation. Here with me today, I'm Lindsay Linzer, Senior Director of Programs and Grants Administration at the Miami Foundation, and I'm here with Melissa Alvarez, Foundation Director for the Jorge M. Perez Family Foundation and the related foundation. So today we're going to walk through a little bit of the history of the Perez Family Foundation, a bit of their funding that they've done in the past, and talk about CreARTE, let you know what we're looking for in terms of grant proposals, and also what we're not looking for. We'll talk through the timeline, and then we'll open it up to questions. As we're going along, we're going to wait till the end for questions, but we ask that you start putting your questions in the questions box on your screen, and then we'll make sure that we answer them all at the end. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started.
Good afternoon. This is Melissa Alvarez. It's a pleasure to be with all of you here today, and I thank you for joining us. We wanted to share a little bit more about the Jorge M. Perez Family Foundation's vision and mission before we get started and into the details of the program itself. The foundation was created in order to help develop South Florida into an exemplary world-class urban center. The family is very much focused on promoting sustainable, inclusive, and just communities by supporting programs and organizations that are really focused on arts and culture, health and well-being, education, environment, and economic development. And as you can see by the creation of CreARTE, one of the main focuses are the arts and just supporting the arts ecosystem here in our community. As part of creating this program, what the family had envisioned is really this idea of investing and leveraging potential funding in the arts community. They are very much interested in supporting organizations that are seeking to either refine best practices, pilot new initiatives, or potentially scale initiatives that they're currently doing that they feel could be successful in other parts of the community or perhaps even in other parts of the country. They're interested in supporting artists and the work that artists are doing here locally. They are also interested in maintaining and creating community vibrancy, funding unique partnerships, and really fostering the idea of collaboration. And they're very much focused on outcome measurement. So they really want to invest in things that have tangible, strong outcomes. Last year, the approach that we took as far as our grant making was concerned was really more of a targeted curation. We partnered closely with the Miami Foundation to invite 60 local arts organizations to submit proposals in the areas of community spaces, permanence, young talent, and professional talent. And after we went through that process, we selected 8 local arts organizations that were provided awards from the Family Foundation, totaling $400,000. Additionally, we also provided grants to other organizations that were focused in the other focus areas that we mentioned previously. In 2019, we really wanted to take a different approach. The family felt very strongly that even though health and wellness, economic empowerment, and those other focus areas were very important to them, they realized that really having an impact in the local arts community was something that they wanted to focus on and that they wanted to really take a very targeted approach. And so that's how the idea of CreARTE was born. The family really wanted to make sure that their impact was going to be that much greater in the arts ecosystem. And so we worked very closely once again with the Miami Foundation to develop and launch this program. As far as the focus areas.
Before we get to the focus areas, we'll tell you a little bit more about the name of CreARTE.
Yes, thank you, Lindsay. CreARTE really came from the idea that, crear, if you know, obviously Spanish and arte, mean to create art. The words mean, create an art. And so when you put them together, it's CreARTE. It's the idea of creating art, of creating yourself, which CreARTE also means. And we felt that this really spoke to the program and the program's objectives of giving artists and youth the opportunity to create art in our community. And the Spanish name really speaks to George's roots and obviously the family's roots as well. So we really think that this name aligns well with our program goals. And I'm going to let Lindsay continue with the presentation.
Great, thank you, Melissa. So we're going to walk you through the 3 focus areas of the CreARTE Grant Program. And we didn't just come to this overnight or arbitrarily. We really took a very long look. We really spent the last year looking at foundations around the country that were supporting arts and culture, looking at our local arts ecosystem to understand both where the needs were as well as where the opportunities were. And also, talk to George, talk to the family, talk to arts experts around the country to talk about where we could potentially have the biggest impact through the foundation's grant making. So the first category of funding as part of the CreARTE program is artist fellowship and residencies. The Perez family really believes in supporting artists, helping them to perfect their craft, grow professionally, and ideally keep their talents in Miami. We understand that as a community, if we're serious about building a sustainable community of artists, we need to give them space and programs for local as well as out-of-town artists to produce their art. So funding artist fellowships allows talented individuals to really make a living doing the work that they love and stay in Miami. And it's one of the hardest types of funding for artists to come by. So the Perez Artist Fellowship Program will be a signature program of the foundation that we do in partnership with nonprofit organizations and arts institutions around the county to create a whole new set of artist fellowships at those institutions supported by the Perez Foundation. Additionally, we will fund existing residency programs that are making a difference in giving artists spaces to create and perfect their craft. So the first question, we'll get to frequently asked questions in just a minute, but the first question that we've been getting over the past week since this launched is there funding available for individual artists? Indirectly, yes, but directly through this program, no. We will be funding arts institutions, nonprofit organizations to create fellowship and residency programs, and then those organizations will have open calls and applications available for individual artists to apply to be recognized as part of those fellowship and residency programs. The second category of funding is really centered on arts education and access. So the foundation recognizes that there is a major funding gap in the arts education space across the spectrum, from early childhood all the way to high school and college pre-professional programs. The research shows that ensuring access to arts at a young age is critical, and it allows learners to develop those critical thinking and creative problem-solving skills that ensure later success in both the workplace and in life. Funding this funding will focus on taking big bets on the high-performing organizations in Miami-Dade County working to expand arts access and education in our community. And the third and final category of funding through CreARTE is spaces for creation. So as we talked to the arts community in Miami, the one thing that kept coming up was the need for more spaces for creation. We heard that there were plenty of options to put on a performance, but there wasn't actually enough spaces to create and practice and innovate, and that the few spaces that currently do exist were being priced out of their homes. We know that rising property values have put artists and arts organizations at risk of displacement. So there's a huge opportunity to develop more spaces for artists to create and or to invest in the already existing arts incubation spaces in a way that will allow them to expand and serve a wider swath of the artist community. So here is the high-level timeline. We released the request for proposal on May 13th, and we're asking that pre-proposals come in by June 10th. We're going to give you till very end of the day, 11:59 p.m., but then we will have a hard deadline and we will not be able to accept pre-proposals after that deadline. Finalists will be notified and asked to complete a full proposal at some point in July, with the ultimate timing of grant awards being made in October of this year. Our program guides that we have available on the Miami Foundation website have additional detail about these timelines, but all of the applications should be submitted through the Miami Foundation submittable page, and the link is on the screen. So we are going to walk through some of the frequently asked questions before we open it up to the floor to answer all of your questions. So the first question that we get asked is, what is the average grant award? So this is our first year doing this program. So we are still figuring this out, but we wanted to give organizations in the community a range to work within. That's not to say that some grants won't be below the range or above it, but we are estimating that grants will be in the range of about $25,000 to $100,000 annually. Are these single-year grants or multi-year grants? So it really is going to depend. We're asking that each organization apply as if it were a single-year grant, but we give you the opportunity, if you make it to the final application, to let us know if we did provide multi-year funding, what kind of capacity would that be able to support? How would that help your program along? So we have some flexibility. Some of the grants that get awarded will be single-year, others may be multi-year, and that will be a decision that's made much later in the process. I've already kind of answered this question. Will there be grants to individuals? No, there will be grants to 501c3 organizations, government entities, or 501c3 equivalents serving Miami-Dade County. We want to see organizations, they have to be serving Miami-Dade County. They don't have to be based here in Miami-Dade County, but they have to have programming that is taking place in Miami-Dade County, and grant dollars will be used specifically to support the Miami-Dade County programming, but there will be no grants directly to individuals through this CreARTE program. So who is going to make these decisions? So there is a long process of how we're going to evaluate the proposals that we are seeing. So in the first round of review, the Miami Foundation staff, as well as Pérez Family Foundation members, both staff and actual family members will be reviewing the proposals. And when we get to the final proposals, we will be inviting in some external experts, people locally who we believe have some sort of expertise in one of the three category areas, that they can help guide us, make some recommendations based on what they know about organizations in the community's past performance, as well as how they think that the applications we receive could make an impact on Miami. Individuals who represent organizations as staff members who could apply for a grant are not going to be participating as reviewers. The question about general operating support. So yes, the foundation is open to general operating support, especially if you're applying under the arts education access category or the spaces for creation category. It may make sense to request funds to support overall operations that will allow you to kind of grow programmatically and increase your reach. We are not dictating that it has to be specific for project or program support or general operating. We leave it to you to make the decision, both which category you're going to apply under, as well as if you're going to apply for a specific program or for general support to kind of scale the work of your organization. Is this going to support event funding? So no, the CreARTE program is not really about providing one-off support for an event. That's not to say there won't be opportunities from the Jorge M. Perez Family Foundation in the future to support events and conferences and convenings. This specific open call is not about that. So we have up on the screen our contact information. Please direct all questions that you have about this program. If we don't get them answered today via the webinar, please direct them to me. My email address is llinzer@miamifoundation.org. While I do have a phone line, because I am out in the community meeting with organizations, doing presentations, you're going to get a quicker answer if you send me an email. A call will probably receive a more delayed response. So I encourage you to email your questions, and then Melissa or I will make sure that we get back to you as quickly as possible. You can learn more about the Jorge M. Perez Family Foundation on our website, as well as submitting our application, the application to this program through the Miami Foundation's submittable page. Melissa, do you have anything you want to add in here before we open it up to questions?
No, I think we've covered it all.
Okay, terrific. So I'm going to take a look. We've gotten a few questions into the chat box so far. Give me just a moment to pull those out. Right. Okay. So the first question, will the PowerPoint and the recording of this webinar be available at the conclusion of today's session? Absolutely. We are recording this today, and within the next day or so, we will have the link available on the grant programs page of the Miami Foundation. So the same space where we talk about the grant program, and you can download the guidelines. We will also include the link to this webinar. Second question, what happens if your organization has residencies, education programs, and is a space for creation? It states we can only apply in one category. Which do you recommend? So again, we are asking that each organization apply only in one category, and we ask that you really take a good look at the guidelines as they're laid out. Look deeply at your organization and figure out what is going to be the thing based on how we've laid out the guidelines and what we're looking for. What do you think is going to be the most effective ask? We can't be the ones to tell you that answer. If you have a more specific question or you want to kind of outline for us via email, kind of the high level what those programs are, we're happy to give you some feedback. But even if we do end up on a call or email, we're not going to tell you specifically which one you should apply for. Apply with the most compelling one that has the largest potential to make an impact and to scale the programs locally. And then next question, in the application it asks what type of organization. It has an option. If applying as other, you must have an established relationship with a fiscal sponsor that is a 501c3. So there are some arts organizations that may be younger and they may not have already applied for their 501c3, but they're doing really meaningful work kind of to create the arts ecosystem in Miami. And so they're working with an established arts organization or another foundation that is a 501c3 or a nonprofit, and that has agreed to fiscally sponsor them. So this is not something that I would say I would recommend, go out and try to find a fiscal sponsor just to apply for this program. We were very clear about saying if you already have an established relationship, so you've already been doing work, kind of the charitable purpose is arts access in Miami, and you're doing work already under the work of a fiscal sponsor. This is not something we're looking for you to develop a new relationship for. The organizations that have this model and structure know who they are and know that they can apply using their fiscal sponsor. The next question, what if we're just starting our 501c3? Will this hinder our application because we don't have a strong track record in the area we are applying? That's great. We are so excited that there are new arts organizations popping up every day, every week across Miami-Dade County, and we're not saying that you can't apply if you are a new 501c3 under a year old, however young you may be. That being said, your application may not be as compelling as some of the other ones out there in the community, because part of this program, if you really read the guidelines, is about scaling the efforts of existing proven models in our community. It's less about funding kind of the new startup organizations. That being said, we still encourage you to apply, because even if you don't get funding through this program, it puts you on our radar. We know about your program, and we still think it's worth applying. But for this specific CreARTE program, it is definitely going to be more focused on organizations that have a proven track record. Would leasing or buying space be considered development of new spaces? Yes. I mean, if you're looking to, you're in a temporary home and you're trying to move into a permanent home, that's definitely, and you're doing the work of creating, spaces for artists to create, then that is definitely aligned with the spaces for creation. Obviously, it's not going to be as simple as, hey, we need the first 6 months rent covered. We need to understand really what kind of difference you're making in actually trying to scale your program and the number of artists you reach, or the innovative ways you plan to reach them, and then showcase that work to the community. It goes well beyond that, but yes, finding new space is definitely kind of aligned with spaces for creation. Will the CreARTE program cover indirect costs for grant budgets? If so, is there a limit to how much? So we haven't set a firm limit for indirect costs. We do believe it's reasonable that some indirect costs do get charged to any grant program. In the past, across every other grant program we've kind of launched, we tend to set a limit somewhere in the 10 to 20% range, 20% being the absolute max, 10 to 15% probably being much closer to average of what a grant program would be willing to cover. Okay, and the next question. Thank you guys for so many great questions. We really appreciate it, and this is really beneficial to everybody else who's on the webinar to actually hear the answers to all these questions. Can an organization apply for both operational support and project support? Yeah, I mean, within one category, as you submit kind of if you get to the final stage of the proposal where we ask you for a budget and you explain, I'm asking for this much for programmatic and this much for kind of our overhead related costs to kind of doing the work that we do, that totally makes sense. I'm not going to tell you the breakdown of what that should be because it's really going to be a 100% case-by-case basis. Do we accept fiscally sponsored entities that don't yet have a 501c3? Yes, so if you have an established fiscal sponsor already and that fiscal sponsor has said that you can apply for this grant program using their 501c3 status, then absolutely you are welcome to apply. But remember, we're only accepting one application per organization. So you really do need to make sure that you check back in with the organization that is fiscally sponsoring you. And make sure that they have their full backing of ongoing programs. Yes, you absolutely can apply and should apply for existing ongoing programs. As outlined in the guidelines and we talked about today, we are looking for kind of proven models of what work. We want to help scale those proven models and ensure that it reaches an even wider audience. So yes, if you have an existing program that you want to help to grow and strengthen, you should absolutely apply with that. We already answered the question about fiscal sponsor. Does this program require matching funds? No, there is not this is not a challenge. It's, we do not require that you have a match to apply. Obviously, as part of the grant application, we will ask you, about other supporters. Where are you getting funding from? How do you plan to raise additional dollars to support the program that you're asking for the foundation to support? But it is not a matching grant. What is the foundation looking for in arts education and access programs? We're not looking for one thing. I mean, that's part of why this year we're doing this as an open call as opposed to targeted curation, because, we're two people with a team of the Miami Foundation behind us. We don't necessarily know everything that's happened. So if we already knew what we were looking for, we would have just gone to those organizations and requested proposals from them. We really wanted to open this up to find out which organizations across the county, whether they be arts organizations or other organizations, are doing arts programming in a way that is giving youth access to the arts through, all types of arts education. We're not looking at any specific genre of arts. We're completely open and we want to hear from you, like, what are you doing that's effective that through the foundation's funding we can help scale?
Right. And it could be anything from introductory programs to actually young professional training. So it really just depends on what specific work you're doing under the category.
Yeah. So the next question is, when you mention event funding, does that include training that occurs during the course of the grant? Yeah, I mean, that seems reasonable if that is aligned, with the category you're applying for, and that's part of kind of the programmatic funding you're seeking, then yes, there can be events related to that. But what we're not looking for through this open call is saying, we're having this big conference next year. Can you please support this conference? We have other channels and funds that we consider those types of proposals through. This CreARTE is not for that type of request. If we elect multi-year, can we change between categories each year? That's really going to be a case-by-case basis. Again, you don't actually get to apply for multi-year funding. We basically decide based on how you propose the program, how you sell what it is your organization needs, whether we think it is worthy and in need of multi-year funding. And so at that point, we would then work with that grantee to develop a multi-year grant agreement that really speaks to everything that we're interested in funding. So it may cross categories, but that's not something that is even up for any sort of discussion at this point, because it's still so far off and will be done on a case-by-case basis. If we were to apply for a space, will the foundation find a space for relocation, or is it to fund the construction of space or renting of space? So no, the foundation will not help you find the specific spaces. And when we talk about really strong proposals, it will be showing us that you have a plan for either identifying space, you're close to kind of a deal in a space, and this additional funding will allow you to take that next step once you can prove to us that your next steps are really well thought out, that you have some sort of strategic plan for your organization, that over the next 5 years, this is your plan for kind of getting a new space and then what you're going to do in that space. So we're really going to be looking for organizations to be thoughtful in what they're proposing and show us that they have a plan that is worth funding. Can you be more specific about the notification and due dates in July? At this time, we can't. We anticipate, probably by mid to late July, we'll be letting you know about the final proposal stage. And we promise if we do ask you for a final proposal, we will give you at least 2.5 to 3.5 weeks just to complete that full proposal. And luckily in the guidelines, we've actually shared with you what those final proposal questions are. So as an organization, it can't hurt to just take a look at those. And if you think there's any that are going to be incredibly hard to answer, if you got to that finalist stage, start thinking about it now. Can your work have direct benefit to Miami, but also national significance? Yes, I mean, definitely. Some of the strongest organizations doing work in Miami started nationally, and it was, repurposed, for the needs in Miami. And so, yes, we were absolutely open to organizations that work nationally that have a Miami program. Our specific funding will look to support the Miami program, but if there's lessons that can be pulled out of what you're doing in Miami that can benefit other chapters, other organizations nationally, it's definitely something we're interested in funding. Okay, are applicants encouraged to partner with other local nonprofits? As part of this open call, we're not requiring that you partner. We do have questions that ask, who are you partnering with? Because we are curious if you do have existing partnerships that really strengthen the work you're doing. We want to know about them and understand how organizations are working together, but we're not requiring outright a specific partnership or number of partners to be eligible to receive funding. Okay. The next question, are the Artist Fellowship focused on visual art or performing arts as well? So we've gotten some amazing press related to CreARTE, which we've been so thankful for and appreciative of everybody, sharing articles and tweets about it. And we do recognize that a few of the articles that were sharing information about CreARTE were unfortunately mistaken. They did mention specifically visual arts. While we do love the visual arts, that is not going to be the only category in which we fund. We are open to everything across the spectrum, all disciplines. We obviously want to know when you're applying, which specific discipline you're applying under, but no, we are completely open to all disciplines of the arts. Does the fiscal agent need to be Miami-based? No. We understand that many folks use fiscal agents, fiscal sponsors based out of New York, California, everywhere, as long as it's an established relationship, that you have an agreement or an MOU, and that they have agreed that you can use their 501c3 to apply. You're welcome to apply with a fiscal sponsor or fiscal agent that is based elsewhere. Again, as long as your project is going to be a project that, you're based in Miami and the work you're doing is in Miami. Are we limited to one proposal? Yes. One proposal in one category of the 3 categories that the guidelines lay out. Can we clarify if pilot programs within established organizations are eligible, or do you prefer to fund scaling of established programs? Yeah, we're open to either. If you've proven yourself as an organization that the work you do is effective, we'd love to hear, based on your experience as a strong organization who's been making a difference in Miami, like, what's your next great idea that we can help support? But we're also open, so we're open to the new programs, and also if you have an effective program and you want to scale it, we're also open to helping you scale it, assuming that you have the details that show this works. We want to see that you have the data and the backup that shows whatever the program is that you're trying to scale, that it works, and that you've done the research about where you want to scale it and how you can successfully scale it. For the arts education grants, what line items are funded?
Again, I don't think we have any specific line items that we would, have you adhere to. I think it's really going to depend on the type of program that you're proposing. Obviously, to Lindsay's point earlier, we don't want it to be where all the funding is going to an event that's an arts event, or something that doesn't necessarily fall under the under the guidelines of us funding a program or an initiative, but I think it's really up to each organization to to determine where those funds are needed in order to successfully either, pilot or expand a program.
The next question, so a residency program ends with several performances. Are those performances events? So that type of event that's aligned with the program you're doing. You're showcasing whoever was part of that residency program, you're showcasing their work. That makes sense. You're not asking us to fund kind of let's rent the space for this, and let's, we're talking about the conferences, the one-day events, like that is not the intention of CreARTE.
And I mean, we've definitely in the past funded organizations that have requested funds to develop a performance or to take a performance, let's say, to schools or out into the community. So those are certainly, programs and initiatives that we would consider funding. I think that's a little different.
The next question, how many artists do you think should be impacted by the fellowship program? We don't have a number on that. We leave it to the individual organization applying. We're going to expect through your grant application, pre-proposal, and then maybe eventually the full proposal that you can show us, what has worked in the past, what are you capable of based on the size of your organization in terms of how many residents how many fellows can you support, and why do you think you're able to support that many? And we leave it to you to apply and ask for X amount. That's not to say if you ask for 3, we're going to fund all 3, but if you think it makes sense to do them as a cohort and it makes sense to apply for more than one fellow, then please feel free to put that in your application along with the reason why. Could a proposal for theater space include a location sharing partnership with a for-profit corporation in the same sector? Absolutely. We think that, especially when it comes to space, we want to find the space where it makes sense, and so we'd be funding the nonprofit, and so if there is space where you're going to be renting it from a for-profit, that totally makes sense. I think most organizations out there do have to, if they don't own their own building, they're renting it from somebody who is a for-profit individual or business. So yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Can we explain the distribution plan? Is it paid upfront or expensed individually for the program? So the grant awards, because they'll be going to 501c nonprofits, will be paid likely in 2 tranches. The grants will probably be divided in 2, with the first amount paid upon signing of the grant agreement and the second amount paid upon the receipt of a satisfactory interim report and financial report. We are partnering with other nonprofits in Miami. If we submit this application, does it limit our partners to submit applications as well?
I would say it doesn't limit your partners. Obviously, they could apply, but I think something to keep in mind is obviously when we're sitting there and we're looking at all these applications and reviewing, we are going to take into consideration that we don't want to fund just a very limited select group of organizations. So that is something to keep in mind, but obviously they could apply.
So it looks like we actually got to the end of the questions. I'm going to leave it open for 1 more minute to see if anyone has any final closing questions. If your question didn't get answered today, we are having an information session here at the Miami Foundation on Wednesday. That's going to be taking place at 9:30 a.m. here at the Miami Foundation. If you're interested in attending, please visit the Miami Foundation website, go to our grant programs page, and there will be a link to register. You do need to register if you're planning on to attend, and there's a cap on how many people can register. If you've gotten all your questions answered today, then you don't need to attend. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in, so we appreciate your time today. We're so excited about this launch of the CreARTE program, as well as kind of new dollars being infused into the arts ecosystem in Miami. So we're thrilled that you join us. We look forward to seeing your grant applications. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Shoot me an email if you have still specific questions that didn't get answered today, and we will we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.